Hello, this is Mike Van Meter, and welcome to the Recovery is Possible podcast. And I want to thank you for joining me. And you can reach us at our Facebook site, which is also called Recovery is Possible, or our website, which is VanMeterWellnessSolutions.com. And this podcast exists to educate the public about addiction and to remove the stigma associated with addiction and offer help and support to those suffering from addiction. And this episode is sponsored by FHE Health, a substance abuse and mental health treatment center specializing in treatment for first responders' needs, including PTSD, anxiety, and substance use. So take the first steps to a better life today by visiting FHEHealth.com. And today, guys, I want to introduce to you a friend of mine, John Kelly. And, you know, this is a meeting that we had kind of by happenstance. For those of you that listen to this podcast, sometime last year, I interviewed a captain with the Broward County Sheriff's Office, Renee Peterson, and I met her when I was down on one of my trips to Florida and had her on the podcast. And she texted me last week and said, I want you to meet somebody that I saw at a captain's conference. This is just a conference that they had for the command staff at the Broward County Sheriff's Office. And she came across John. John was one of the speakers. He's going to talk more about that at this conference. And she said, you know, I really think John has a fantastic message, and you ought to talk to him. And he has a fantastic story when it comes to wellness, and as that relates to addiction, all sorts of different types of addictions, and really promoting mental health wellness, particularly in the law enforcement profession. But remember, guys, I know a lot of times we talk about the law enforcement profession, but law enforcement is not unique in stress. The military, the helping professions, nurses, doctors, all the different, they're all kinds of lawyers. Everybody can benefit from the different topics that we talk about. It's just that happens to be our background. And he has a fantastic message. Talked to him a couple of times, and I really know that you're going to get a lot out of what John has to say to you. So with that, I want to introduce you to John Kelly. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. I know that you're friends with Renee. In fact, you worked with her years ago.
I did. I did.
So tell us a bit about how you connected again. How did that happen?
So I had retired a year ago. I did 30 years with the Sheriff's Office, and I was asked to come back. I've been putting on a program, a wellness program for first responders called Sometimes Heroes Need Help. And so I had just finished up over the summer putting the program on for all the sergeants and lieutenants within the agency. And one of the command staff said, this is a message. This is a program that we want to get to the masses. And they asked that I make my presentation to their command captain's session that they were having. And so I in that moment, I kind of reconnected with Renee and a bunch of other captains that I hadn't seen in over a year. And that seminar was just last week.
Wow. And what were the topics that you talked about?
So the program that I've been putting on, it addresses the personal, professional, financial, physical, and mental health and well-being of us. And it's funny. So I had one of these careers, man. If you could have scripted a career, blessed. There wasn't an assignment that I wanted to do that I didn't get the opportunity. Despite, and this is the other thing, despite addictions and all the holes that I fell in throughout my career, I would argue that my career was one that, someone would aspire to have. And it's the craziest thing. You would think with all those problems, realizing, the assignments that I had wouldn't be possible. And it's just, it speaks to the point about addressing issues and being accountable and all those things, right? One of my assignments prior to exiting was in the training division. And we were at the time we were burying a deputy a year at the hands of a suspect. And the agency had taken hold of a very reactive stance, and a lot of hesitation, a lot of second guessing, not a lot of empowering. And so that kind of manifested itself in us being really good at burying our own. And so with a change in command, they requested to adopt more of a warrior mindset. And we were given pretty much carte blanche to develop programs that didn't keep us surviving, but kept us winning deadly force encounters. So we ran with it. We were, if we needed equipment, if we needed funding, it was a blank check. The incoming command, their commitment to winning was commendable. And so we developed some very aggressive, proactive, win at all cost programs that resonated with the troops. But at the end of the training day, Mike, that inevitably every day there'd be somebody lingering about, somebody milling about, not jumping in their car and heading home. And without exception, every day there'd be one, if not more. And so, hey, what are you doing? We'd go up to them. Well, what's shaking? Why are you still here? We cut you out early. Why are you still here? And 3, 2, 1, the floodgates, right? And the crying, the distraught, and it came. We had this epiphany, this discovery. It's like the things that are jamming our guys up, the things that are causing heartache, the things that are keeping our guys from wanting to go home. It's got nothing to do with the cop stuff. It's the life stuff. It's the relationship issues. It's the addiction issues. It's the abuses of alcohol. It's their inability to communicate effectively with their partners. It was one of those things where we were just like, we're training the guys on the wrong things, man. There's a class for everything, be it the FBI or the Broward Sheriff's Office. There's a class for everything, but there is no class to keep you from hurting yourself. There is no class that teaches you how to navigate your way out of these dark places that we find ourselves in. But quite frankly, if you're in this line of work, you're going to experience. It's inevitable. And so we started spending a significant amount of time referring, helping, mentoring, coaching, normalizing conversations that people didn't want to have, that were uncomfortable to have because they showed weakness, right? And God forbid we shed a tear, right? We're bulletproof, man. Nothing bothers me. Nothing phases me. I got this. And we go on to the next crisis. We don't ever allow ourselves a moment to be human.
Mm-hmm.
Can't happen. Won't happen. Not on my watch. And suppressing that and pretending that we have all the answers and that we've got it all figured out, that we don't need help, is really a death sentence for us, right? So thankfully I was with a bunch of like-minded guys who saw the importance of caring, right? Of caring. I know that's a foreign we actually care about people. And so upon my exit, I was like, not a lot has changed, man. We still have the same issues. When we talk about suicide within the law enforcement community, with the ratio for every bad guy that kills a law enforcement professional, 3 take their own lives.
That's a staggering number.
These are undisputed facts.
That is a staggering number. It really is.
And Mike, if the Bureau was experiencing a loss of agents at the hands of suspects, if that ratio was reversed, if we were getting ambushed 3-1, right? If the threat was from the outside, if the threat was the car 4 deep, if the threat was the search warrant, we would completely revamp how we did business.
Yeah.
There'd be intensive training, or we would come up with a solution. When the folks at the sheriff's office started dying doing search warrants, you know what we did? we started having the SWAT team do search warrants and not the detectives.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We addressed it. We're like, all right, this is really dangerous. We need to do something about it. Let's put some people that have a skill set above and beyond the regular guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so then oddly enough, detectives stopped dying doing search warrants because our SWAT team is excellent at what they do. They have the skills, they have the equipment, the intelligence. They have everything that they need to minimize the risk, right? Minimize the risk. You can't remove the risk completely, but you're going to minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to us taking our own lives or getting involved in self-destructive behavior, not only do we not minimize that, we turn a blind eye to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we do, Mike. We hope. Hope's not a plan, brother.
No. And it's funny because you use many, many, many taglines that I've used over the years and the concepts that I've talked about. Hope is not a plan. You need to have a plan. And right. I in the training that I do around the country, I talk about this, that the one area that is the most destructive to you coming into a law enforcement career, and again, other careers face this as well, the thing that's going to take you out is you. The big, I might have a suspect, come at me. I've been in dangerous situations. You've been in dangerous situations, but really the biggest threat to my life is me. And it doesn't even have to be suicide. It can be drinking yourself to death or what I used to talk about with the new agents when I taught down at the FBI Academy. I used to do this thing, and you might find this kind of funny, but there was a reason why I did it, because it was necessary. I used to pull the agents aside, the new agents, if we had some extra time, and talk about all the things that you can do to screw your career up very, very quickly. And it involved alcohol, it involved sex, and it involved bureau cars, the government cars.
Sure.
Sex, alcohol, and your take-home car. Those are the things that if you told me, 5 years from now, you tell, hey, Mike, I lost my career. I guarantee it's going to be one of those things.
One of those
three things that caused it.
Yes.
But those are the things that we don't talk about. Right? We don't. We just don't talk about those things.
It's I don't know, maybe because I'm in a different place. Well, absolutely because I'm in a different place. But so then I start thinking, if it's important for bosses to understand the role they play in promoting or establishing a culture. And we are so far from establishing a culture of caring that, because you and I both have. I watched your presentation to the troopers in Ohio.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I watched the entire presentation, and I was yelling. My wife was like, "What's going on in there?" I go, the parallels between you could have exchanged our names, and it would have been the same story moving forward. You reached some really dark places a little quicker than I did, but I got to tell you, the way our agencies dealt with it, we're lucky that we're still here.
Yeah.
And so it's caring, and part of my program and the message is, you don't have to like someone to care about them. That's one of the key kind of concepts that I try to drive home, especially with command, that these people, they're yours, and they're looking to you to whether or not, if it's safe for them to peel back a layer, if it's safe for them to share. And the vast majority of our commands don't make that a no-brainer for us. See what they do, and we talk about stigmas, right? The things that keep us. I'll submit to you that at times it becomes more about self-preservation in the job than it does about, well, I don't want people to know my business. You know what, Mike? Everybody knows your business. Everybody knows you're the drunk. Everybody knows you're the addict. Everybody knows, and we do a great job of insulating our own when it comes to unacceptable behavior. We think we're doing our buddies a solid, and in all actuality, we're just we're perpetuating this spiral. And so, it's not a big secret, but what happens is, Mike, if I got to worry about my standing in the agency, if I got to worry about my position that I've worked my entire career for, if I've got to worry about being benched, money taken out of my pocket, I've got a family to take care of. I've got all these people relying on me. And if my agency doesn't let me know that it's okay, that I'm not going to be penalized, I'm not going to be put in timeout, that their only wish is that I get better and they're willing to go to great lengths to make that happen, if that message isn't being resonated with the rank and file, then you know what you do? You sit back and you go, you know what, man? I'll figure this out on my own. I'm not going to them. I can't afford to.
And so let me ask you this. And I have my own theory on this, and I've talked you mentioned the video that you saw me doing the presentation out in Ohio,
right?
And I addressed it out there. What do you think the number one reason why people don't come to their agency for help is?
I think the fear of it being used against you.
Absolutely, that is the number one fear. That is the number one fear. And so, if you are a police executive and you're listening to this podcast, you have to understand that your employee, let's just stick with addiction, let's say a chemical addiction, alcohol or pills. Sure. Your employee has a disease, the disease of addiction, that's going to kill them if it's unaddressed. It's going to kill them. Now, I want you to think about this. If you're an executive, your employee fears you more than they do the thought of death from their addiction. Just let that sink in for a minute.
That's insane. The insanity of that statement. But I got to tell you, there is no statement that's more true.
They fear you more than a disease that they know is going to kill them. And there's something wrong with that. And that means that the message in the agency must change, that your employees need to know that it's a safe space. And you hit on something here too, and that is this, that your coworkers, if we're talking to you, if you're somebody that's listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with an addiction issue and you think, man, I can't talk to anybody in my agency about this, I got news for you. Everybody in your agency already knows it. They already know it. And you need to ask yourself, why are you not going to get the help? And if you are the agency, why are you not intervening to help your employee? Because, like I said, this is a disease that will kill you. Now, if you had, imagine this, John. Okay, let me just paint the scenario. Let me give a different perspective. If I came to you, John, and I'm in the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and I said, hey, John, I've got cancer, and you say to me, oh man, I'm sorry to hear about that. So what kind of treatment are they putting you through? And I say to you, well, treatment? I'm not going to get treatment. Are you kidding me? No, I'm going to ride this thing out. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe it'll go away. And you would say to me, Mike, that's insane. Why would you? No. You need to get help. No. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna ride this thing out. And then you would protect me. And if I said to you, hey, don't tell anybody else about this. Don't tell anybody else because I don't want anybody to know. I'm kind of ashamed of the fact that I have cancer. And you would say to me, what? Right. What are you talking about? You have no control over that. But if you think about it with a chemical addiction, that is how we treat it, right? We treat it. Hey, don't tell anybody I'm ashamed of this and I'm not going to get the help that I need. And then just like cancer, because the reason why you'd be upset with me is that the cancer is going to get worse and it's going to be fatal. Well, I got news for you. It is no different with addiction. None.
100%. 100%. And so, it's almost a perfect storm, right? I mean, we've got an agency that isn't doing, there are some out there. I don't want to paint too broad of a brush, but statistically, agencies aren't your friend in this situation. Mm-hmm. That we've seen more people lose their job, right? Their livelihood when it comes to navigating these waters, because our agencies, they're not as educated as they need to be on this disease, right? They don't terminate you for having cancer, right? process.
They do put a
you out
different
the door.
standard on it. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, no, they don't. I got to tell you, the GoFundMe account gets pretty well funded right out of the gate. No shortage of people lining up wanting to contribute to you getting better. Not the same. I don't see many GoFundMe started because you're an alcoholic or an addict. I don't see that outpouring of caring. That's your problem. You've created that problem. That's what you get, Mike. And you're talking about something that somebody doesn't have any control over.
No, not if you have and that's where the disease model comes in.
Right.
And I would argue, actually, if you're a police officer, I would argue also this idea that you created the problem. Now, let me back up for a minute and address that for a second. I've had this conversation with people before, and if you're listening, I want you to understand this very, very quickly. John, when you were 12 years old, I don't know how old you were when you had your first drink. I was pretty young.
I was actually 10, actually.
10, probably around there for me, around there, young, okay?
Yep.
Pretty young. And I don't remember, and by the way, my first drink was given to me by an adult. And I don't remember anybody saying to me, hey, Mike, here's a beer, here's a Budweiser, and you go ahead and enjoy yourself there, son. But here's what you need to know before you take that drink. That if you have the genetic predisposition towards addiction, what this drink is going to do is ignite into you a progressive and deadly disease that will destroy everything and everyone and every hope that you have. And then the bonus is going to be you're going to die from it. Now, you go ahead and you drink that beer and enjoy yourself.
Right.
But that's what's going to happen. I don't remember having that conversation with
Right.
anyone. Now, we know scientifically the data is out there. It's undisputed. That is exactly what the case is going to be. Now, we do know that not only do you have the genetic predisposition, but you also have the social factors and the stressors that are in your life. Now, if you've never been an officer out on the street, in a big city street, Miami definitely being one of those, and I was a Washington, D.C. police officer in this profession, there is not a more traumatic profession to be in. There just isn't. In fact, in a lot of ways, I would say it's worse than the military, because at least in the military, you're doing deployments and you come back. There is no deployment cycle as a police officer. It's death and destruction all day, every day for 20 to 30 years, however long you do that. And so my point behind all of this is that really I was put into a profession that no one, even though the data is out there, no one once in any of the training I was ever in talked about how all of this would affect me or you, and how it would affect this propensity towards addiction that existed. Okay. And, that's why I think agencies have an obligation to go back and do what they can to help people that in many ways they help create. For example, if you're working homicides, or if you're working, how about child pornography? What if you're exposed to that for years? You're not supposed to be exposed to it. Human beings are not supposed to be exposed to, you go pick up dead, but what job do you go to where you pick up dead babies or look at, children that have been molested by perpetrators? That's not a normal job. Correct. And then we turn around and say, but you created this problem for your, what?
Right.
I didn't, we have no sympathy for the people that we put into these positions.
It gets twisted real quick, doesn't it? It's and it's fine. Just listen to you talk about some things. So when you were talking about things, I went back there in my mind.
Yeah.
I started thinking about some things that you had touched on, and so when I started this thing of this career, I was drinking heavily. My life modeled yours. I went to a military college in the 80s. I graduated in 89 from college. There are whole years I don't remember. And people will tell stories and they think I'm being funny or coy or like I don't want to admit that I was there. I would love to, because it sounds like it was a lot of fun at the time. I wasn't there. I don't remember. And I used alcohol extensively. I didn't need a reason; it just was. But what it ended up doing is, and I know this now because I've got experience and I've been down in that hole, several holes, that I was using that alcohol to numb myself, to self-medicate, so I could go to sleep. Because the PTSD, PTSD affects everybody in law enforcement. If you've been on a critical incident, you have been exposed to post-traumatic stress. Now, depending on where you are in your life and what you know about it, you've been able to manage it, deal with it, address it, and move forward. But it's so much more than a flyer in roll call. When we talk about the outreach and once you're in it, I didn't realize I was suffering from PTSD back in the day. I just thought it was having a hard time dealing with some stuff that I should have been probably a little stronger. I'm not seasoned enough. None of the veterans on the shift are having a problem with this. I better cowboy up. I better man up, because I can't let this shit get to me, because it's like this every night. Once you realize that your reaction to the horrific is completely normal, then you try to develop positive ways to deal with that and manage that. But alcohol, not knowing, being predisposed, having that gene, as my dad would like to say, that's just pouring gasoline on a fire. That accelerates the destruction. And God, and part of me doing what I'm doing now with my Sometimes Hero Need Help program is I figured some things out, Mike. Through a lot of I don't want to compare myself to you, because I think the things I would like to aspire to do what you're doing. I mean, you're doing some really great things, and I'm starting to reach people, and people are starting to listen, and I truly believe that I'm starting to impact people in a positive way. And if this shit of a life was worth anything, it's now the ability to pay it forward, to help those that are still in the middle of it, man, that are looking around going, oh man, who do I turn to? How can I get help? I'm down in this hole. Who can help me out of it? And so that's the role I feel drawn to playing right now, using those experiences with alcoholism and addiction and infidelity and all those self-destructive behaviors, and turning it around and trying to make it a positive of this life. That if not me, then who? If not you, then who?
Yeah, and you know what? So if you can, for the listeners, I mean, you're very passionate about this, and you have a powerful message. I mean, obviously, it had an impact on Renee Peterson when she saw you, and that night she said, "Hey, you got to talk to this guy."
Right.
You're very passionate about it. So we're at a place now. So if you can, kind of walk the listeners back. What led you to being here? Why? Why do you do this? What happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh my God. So there's got to be some sense of the pain.
Yeah.
They can't be for nothing. The pain I caused in my family, the pain, it's got to be for something, right? There's got to be some good that comes from all the pain. And this is it. This is me making good, not only on a promise, like to my family, but to myself. Like, I will never be that person again. I had a problem with drinking. Irish kid from Boston, go figure. Who would ever thought? And yeah, predisposed. And the drinking, and that wasn't the thing that almost destroyed my life. Comparatively, believe it or not, it was an addiction to steroids that actually did that. And so I'm an alcoholic. I'm getting help. I'm doing what I need to do to be a better husband, better father, a better human being. And I'm sober for 10 years. and I let my guard down. I'm like, I forgot, Mike, that it's not about the alcohol, it's about the addiction. And so I'm not drinking, but lo and behold, I'm surrounding myself with people who are normalizing unacceptable behavior, right? Does it sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm not drinking anymore, but now I'm taking steroids to the extent that I'm dying a slow death inside. And steroids have a very crazy effect on your hormones, your personality, the things that you vow to care about and love forever, you discard. And it got to the point, Mike, where I was being investigated for the second time for my use of steroids at work, and my life was just spiraling out of control. I had an affair that it was the start of me destroying everything I loved. I thought I would have learned my lesson 10 years ago when I walked away from the bottle. But it never, and I look back, and over those years, I was addicted to things still. And I still had that personality. It just wasn't as destructive as alcohol or steroids, right? And so I'm in this place, man, and my wife is, God, someday you'll meet her, Mike. She's an amazing woman, man. She is really, she loved me at times when I gave her absolutely no reason to do so. When I would not have blamed her if she walked. Mm-hmm. And she didn't. She saw something in me that at the time I couldn't see in myself. I think very similar to a situation that you had with your spouse.
We have the ability to pick very, very good people despite ourselves. God. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people don't have that. And for that, my heart aches, because if I don't have her in my life, I'm not alive, brother. It's that simple. I'm not alive if I don't have my Nicole. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I am all messed up on steroids. You would think that how could that mess you up? Oh my God. I don't want you to try it, and I don't want you to figure it out, but just take my word for it. It will. And I don't see a way out of this. I've destroyed my marriage. I'm under my second suspension. They're conducting investigations. They want to send me to prison at work for purchasing a controlled substance. And everything that I care about is just going. It's going away. And I got to the point where I was just like, well, maybe if I hurt myself, she'll love me again. Maybe my daughter will look at me the way she did before I hurt her mother. And you go to yourself, but wait a minute, if you hurt yourself, you won't be around. It's like, it's the most ridiculous thought process. It makes no sense. But in that moment, when you're not thinking clearly, when you're in extreme emotional pain, you think that hurting yourself is actually going to make the situation better. And then, I went to my primary care doctor, a guy I had been avoiding for years because of my abuse. I knew he would never condone it. Mm-hmm. And I got into his exam room, and he looked at me, and he just started fucking crying. He was like, "Oh my God!" He couldn't. And we hugged, and it was just like, "I need help, man. I need help." And this man, his name was Carlos Levy, amazing human being. I mean, extreme athlete, loving husband, father. I mean, a guy who gives of himself to exhaustion. He was just amazing. And I credit him with getting me out of that death spiral. And so, a lot of talking and a lot of, stop pumping that poison in my system and getting me on track with proper diet and nutrition and talking with him and people that knew what it was like. You can't, at the end of the day, there's no world that exists that's better off without you in it, right? You can't be a better father. You can't be a better husband. You can't be a better partner. You can't be a better friend if you take your own life.
Mm-hmm.
You just fucking can't. The absurdity of that situation and that statement isn't lost on me. But in that moment, that seems like an answer. That seems like it makes sense in the moment. And and it comes back to our inabilities to deal with the horrors, our inabilities to make ourselves a priority, our inabilities to take care of us, right? You can't be there for them if you're not there for you. And we by design, man, we're consumed with taking care of everybody else. We're excellent at that. We do a horrible job of taking care of ourselves, to the extent that we're finally, once we get to a point, we're on the edge. We're almost at the point of no return. And so part of this program is the focus on making you a priority in your personal, professional, financial, with your physical and mental health and well-being, that at the end of the day, you can't be there for them if you're not there for you. And that starts, it starts with our relationships. It starts with the way we interact with each other at work. It starts with, being mindful of our finances and our financial health and our physical and emotional health, and doing everything that we do for everybody else, but doing it for ourselves, making ourselves a priority. And I don't know if I came full circle on this on you or not, Mike, but I just, that was the journey, man.
You know what? And you raise a good point, and it reminds me of a conversation I had with someone I was working with last week. I was listening to an individual talk, and I decided for some reason to say to this person, and this individual, what they're struggling with is alcohol. And they were saying some things that made no sense from a recovery standpoint. And I used the tactic, I put it to them this way. I said, imagine, if you will, that you are a sponsor, an AA sponsor, and you are sitting right over there in that chair, and you're talking to you about what you just told me. Tell me what you would tell yourself if you were your sponsor. And it's amazing. And they went through the list of things that, I would tell so-and-so this, that, and the other thing. And it's amazing how accurate they were. Absolutely how accurate they were. And, from a clinical standpoint, they were spot on. It was fantastic advice. And I said, no, But the funny thing is, that's what you would tell someone else. But you won't take that advice coming from someone else. And when you just talked about this, that in our profession, in the law enforcement profession, we will go to the ends of the earth. I don't know of many cops or paramedics, firefighters, agents, you name it. We all will work all night. We will work around the clock to help someone else. But isn't it amazing how little effort we put into taking care of ourselves, when in reality, we really should be the first people that are taken care of, because after all, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't help anyone else. That's why on an airliner, they tell you when that oxygen mask falls, you put it on yourself first, because if you pass out, you're of no use to anybody.
Right. It makes perfect sense, right? Makes perfect sense. But we do that. It's a I've got a theory on that, I think, before we get down that rabbit hole, I think on the surface, obviously we like solving problems, right? I was never happier when I was getting out of the car and chaos, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a good one. And then you figure it out, right? And you start creating a sense of calm and clarity, and you're solving other people's problems. I think we do a great job at that, Mike, so we never have to solve our own. I think as long as we have something else to solve, as long as we have another
That's a very good point. That's an excellent point. A lot of good insight right there on that one.
right? As long as we have another call to go to, as long as we have another mission. See, this is what happens, brother. We always have another mission. I was blessed at the end of my career. I was running presidential motorcades all through South Florida. I was that guy. I had a 50-man motor unit. I had some great partners. And when any dignitaries came to South Florida, the Broward Sheriff's Office, along with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, along with the Metro Dade, and all of our municipal partners, we would run POTUS, VPOTUS around wherever he needed to go. And that was awesome, man, because the magnitude of that, I just thought it was the best, man. I got to take a little peek behind the curtain, see how some things operated, part of motorcades and protecting the most powerful people in the world, right? Like, that's it, man. Like, that was like a highlight for me. But what happens when you don't have another mission, man? When the missions are all gone, you're left to, now you're almost forced. You're forced to take a look in the mirror. You're forced to address you. And, for 30 years, you're given you're given everybody else's problems to solve at the expense of you ever taking a hard look at yourself. And I got to tell you, those moments where you take a hard look at yourself, the brutal honesty that comes with that, you may not be happy with the person looking back at you in the mirror. And if you're not, then that demands action on your part. And now it just got real. Mm-hmm. And it was something, man. That was a part of this whole journey. And like I said, I would want guys to. I don't see the holes, the different holes you fall into along the path, man. I'd like to make them just bumps, right? We can deal with the little bump. When you fall in the hole, man, that takes some doing. That takes some doing to get out of it, right? So if we can kind of get ahead of it and address problems when they're small, when they first arrive, before they have become consuming, I think that's where our efforts need to be. I think that's where our agencies right now, Mike, less than 5% of the agencies in this country have a proactive mental health program for their people. Less than 5%. So we're just hoping. See, but we know statistically that the vast majority, I think the numbers, conservative numbers say 15%, but and it's a hard number to track PTSD because you really only know about the people that are seeking help, right? Everybody in the room's walking around with some sort of mental baggage that they're dealing with, some better than others. But let's say 25%. 1 out of 4 guys in the room is having an issue with PTSD because we know it's cumulative in nature, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't go away. It keeps building. And unless we find healthy ways to deal with it, it's gonna manifest itself at some point in a very ugly way. And so, we know this. This is not John Kelly's philosophy. There are people that have done research and studies, scientists, that these are proven facts, and we're just waiting. It's almost like, when you go to war, any battle that gets planned out, any initiative, there's a acceptable loss, right? If we assault this ridge, we're going to lose 20% of our guys. They don't not assault the ridge. That's in the military. That's we don't want to see anybody die, but it's the cost of doing business. It turns out to be an acceptable loss, and I'm afraid, Mike, that if we don't get a better handle on this as a profession, those that succumb to PTSD and suicide and alcoholism and addiction, that's going to be looked at as an acceptable loss. Well, there are 700,000 members in this organization, and it's really less than 1%. And and that's my fear, man, is that we're going to lose the value that each life brings to the table.
Yeah, and particularly in the last couple of years, where, let's face it, law enforcement in particular, first responders in general, but definitely police officers have really been under attack, by the public, justified, unjustifiably so. I would argue that the vast majority of police officers absolutely are not deserving of the treatment that they're getting right now, but yet it has an effect on everyone. And
Of course.
I let me just to follow up on something that you just said here, that only about 5% of the agencies have really a viable mental health program going on. I believe that. And I'll throw another little wrench into that, what you mentioned. And that is that I know the one thing that I noticed when I went through what I went through, and that really drove what I'm doing now, and I think probably drives why you're doing the work that you're doing, is that even those that have a mental health or addiction program really don't have people in running those programs that really understand the first responder. I know my agency, the people that I worked with, licensed mental health professionals, absolutely. But
Right.
they came into that field. That's what they did. Well-meaning people, very educated people. I'm not being disparaging towards them at all.
No, I understand completely.
But they weren't agents, and they were not
Right.
people. And I'm sure that's the same with you. What I would like to push is more people like you and I getting into this field, and that because I know that when I went through what I went, it would have been so comforting for me to speak to someone like me that
Right.
did this job. That's just my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, and certainly right. There's something to be said for experience. I don't have any fancy letters after my name. My MBA's from Phoenix University. All right, all right, rock on. But I had said, and I kind of give this little disclaimer at the beginning of my talk. I said, this is John Kelly speaking. I don't speak for, nor will I ever speak for the Broward Sheriff's Office, or I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life and some of the things that I did that got me where I'm at, and I'm gonna try to share some things with you. But by no stretch of the imagination do I have it all figured out. I'm just going to relay some experiences, some things that I did. I'm not professionally trained in dealing with post-traumatic stress. I can tell you I've had it. I can tell you what I did to get through it. I can tell you about the nights that I sat and stared at the ceiling fan and cried. I can tell you about all the things that gave me problems and the things that helped me get through it. But they're not a clinical response to it. And then, when I see people leaning in their chairs during my presentation, almost to the point of falling out of them, I realize that in that moment that they don't want the guy with the MD and all the letters after his name, not unless he's lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said for living it.
Mm-hmm.
And in a profession, in a law enforcement profession that distrusts most people from the outside, I think being in it and not taking advantage of that opportunity to maybe be in a room where people will lower their guard a little bit because it's you, I think it's incumbent upon us to be that messenger.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why we need more of that. We need more of it. And I'm glad to see that there's so many more opportunities to have seminars like what you're doing, what I'm doing. And, so all of this experience drove you to do what you're doing now. And so you've started a company. This is a company, correct? That you
Correct.
have?
So the company's Law Enforcement Life Coach. The website, lawenforcementlifecoach.com. And so I do one-on-one mentoring, but I got to tell you, the real satisfaction that I get is speaking to groups. And so I've been putting this program on for about a year now. And typically agencies will have me come in. I'll speak with their entire command staff, or they'll roll the program out as part of their in-service, so I get to all their deputies. Ultimately, it's about starting and having a conversation that is a little difficult to have, a little intimidating to have. And by my using my own life experiences, I kind of fillet myself open to the good and the bad, just to normalize it, to let them know that they're not alone, that somebody can go through the things that I went through and still come out living a fulfilled, beautiful, blessed life. And it didn't happen by chance, right? It took intervention. It took action. It took the caring of others. It took me finally caring about myself. All these things, and that, there's a better way. There is a life that exists where you can be excited about waking up tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You can be excited about going home to see your partner. There were times, Mike, when I stayed at work because I didn't want to go home. And it's just, there's so much more out there. And to be able to share that you don't need to be living the life that you're living right now if you don't like it. If there's something you're going through right now, and you think you're the only one, I can guarantee you that you're not. And that there's people available to talk, to mentor, to guide, to support. And that whole concept about, people say, oh, you're not alone. Well, that's great, but truly you're not, know that you're not alone, because there are people that love you, that care about you, that are willing to go to great lengths to get you the help that you need.
And you raised a very good point. And if you are somebody that's listening to this podcast right now and you're just dreading the evening time because you got to go to work tomorrow morning, and you've gotten to that point to where it's just painful, particularly if you're in a job like the jobs that we were in. I know I went into law enforcement, you went into law enforcement because you're like, that's the dream job. That's what I want to do. And for most of us in the very beginning, it was exciting and you couldn't wait to get to work because it was exciting. If you're not excited by police work, I don't know what's wrong. But there becomes a time when that goes away, and now you start to dread it, and you start to dread the people. And if you're at that point, then there's something is off. Something is out of balance. Right. And in nature, we want balance. And if that's you and you're listening to this, then I'd recommend that you reach out to somebody. You can reach out to John, you can reach out to me. And if it's not us, reach out to somebody and find out what it is that we're talking about, how you can have a better life, because you can. I know in recovery for me and recovery for you, doesn't mean that the problems go away. Trust me. No. People haven't changed. I deal with as many jerks today as I ever did in my career. Right. What changed was me, how I react to other people. Right. That's what's changed. They haven't changed, but I have changed. And
there's a prayer I speak of during my seminar. It's the serenity prayer. Yeah. Right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Mm-hmm. I cite that to the group, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, yeah, right. Hear my words. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. Me, I've got control over me, and the wisdom to know the difference. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that I like to leave people with is that, listen, as crazy and as out of control as life gets, you still have control over your reactions to things and how you deal with them. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we owe that to ourselves to be true to that. It's funny. I wrote a book. I'm half a moron, but I decided to kind of complement my program with a book. And it's in cover design right now. It'll be coming out hopefully within the next month. It's called, and it's funny. So my wife has been by my side through all of this, and fortunately, unfortunately, in the writing of this book, I kind of outed her as well, right? I mean, she's like, "Oh, great! Now everybody knows." I go, "I know, but guess what? There's somebody's wife out there who's going through what I put you through, right? And wouldn't you want them to know what you did and how? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like." She's cool with it, right? But, she's a very private woman. But I told her, I said, she goes, well, what do you name, what are you going to call this thing that you've been writing for the last year? And I said, the name of the book is called Redemption. And the subtitle is Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds, A Deputy's Life.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And it's kind of thought-provoking because when I look back, Mike, much, if not all, was of my making. And if it's all of my making, I can undo it all.
That's a great point.
Right?
That's a great point.
So it's, it's owning it, it's taking responsibility, and then it's figuring it out. It's doing the work. And that's where we're at with it, man. And that's where we're at with it.
Man, that no truer words than that. We've kind of dug our own hole, but you can get out of it.
Right.
You can.
Right.
Now, I will tell you that working in the treatment world that I'm working in right now, if you were to ask me, hey, what's the common theme with the patients that don't get well? And that is that they hear the message. I know where I'm working right now. Every single patient that comes through hears the message. They are given the tools, absolutely given the tools to get well. And if they follow the suggestions, and that's all they are, suggestions. We can't make anybody do anything, but we can suggest to you a path to take. And most of us that are working there have been on that path, that your life will get better. It can't not get better. But what happens is they will look at us in the eye and they will say, I hear you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this over here. Or I think that, and they just don't take the suggestions. And, there is a way out of whatever hole, whatever pit you're in right now. But hook up with somebody that's been where you are, and please, please, please take the suggestions. Because what happens is when you go talk to all these people, and this is what I tell the patients, is look at all the people around here that are in long-term recovery. And if you listen to them, they all do the same things. They all got to that place of long-term recovery by doing basically the same things. Ironically, the people that don't get well also do the same things.
They're consistent.
Yeah, there's a pattern. And the fact is that, it came down to, and you mentioned a decision, and that is you have to make a decision. Do I want to get well or not? Right. And if the answer is yes, then follow the suggestions. And if you're not going to follow the suggestions, you're just not ready yet. But get ready. Right. You don't have to live in a hell. You don't.
There is a better way.
There is. So with that, John, thank you so much for coming on. Let the listeners know one more time how they can get hold of you.
Sure.
Remind them again about the book, and really looking forward to that. But if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
So my website, lawenforcementlifecoach.com, and that has a whole resource section with helplines and websites for different types of assistance, marriage assistance, abuse assistance, the whole gamut. The name of the book that should be coming out within the next month or so is called Redemption, Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds, A Deputy's Life. And it's a complement to the program that I put on for agencies around the country, which is called Sometimes Heroes Need Help. And you can reach out to me and contact me through the website. Wow,
that's fantastic. And really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this book coming out. I'm really excited about that. And, folks, please check that out. John Kelly, a great speaker. Like I say, as soon as he gave a speech, I got a phone call that night. And we were talking about you.
It's great to be a part of people's solutions,
Yeah, there is a solution, guys, and please take advantage of that. And thanks again, John, for coming on the program. Really appreciate it.
Mike, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me, brother.
Oh, yeah. Well, once again, this episode has been sponsored by FHE Health, and according to SAMHSA, first responders are 30% more likely to develop behavioral health conditions like PTSD. And we've talked quite a bit about that on the show today. 30% more likely. And so FHE Health specializes in getting first responders better and cleared for duty. So find out more at fhehealth.com. And so, as always, I'd like to say, I don't represent any group. We talk about groups on here, but, and John mentioned that too early on. We don't represent anybody. We're just telling our stories. So my only purpose and John's only purpose is giving is to give this information to share with you what we've done, because it's helped us. And I'm sure it's going to help you as well if you just take those suggestions. So if I've said something that doesn't apply or you don't agree with, then just discard it. But try to take any information that you can use for yourself and help others as well, because that's what we do in recovery. We help ourselves along the way, and we help impart that knowledge to others as we go along this path. So with that, please visit our Facebook page, which is Recovery is Possible, and our website, VanMeterWellnessSolutions.com. Let me know how I'm doing, and certainly let me know if there's a topic that you're interested in hearing about, because I'd love to hear from you. And guys, take care, and we will see you next time. John, thank you, and we'll be talking with you soon as well.
Thank you. My pleasure.